Gloria Jeanette Snap, Nevada State Director for Independence Caucus, and this is our panel interview of Mr. Bill Parson.
Question number 1. What is the concept of unalienable rights as mentioned by Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence?
Inalienable rights are those rights granted by our Creator. Since they're granted by our Creator, they cannot be divorced from any citizen by government intervention. If they are divorced from those citizens by government intervention, we call that a despotic government who is taking and imposing control upon a citizen for those rights that were granted by our Creator. Inherently within that, we mean that we are a Judeo-Christian society. We look back and we recognize that even despite the fact some of our founding fathers may have been agnostic, they recognized that there was a greater being in the universe than themselves. Even if you did not believe in a Judeo-Christian divinity, then you've got this entity within the universe that has impacts across us. This spills down into the individual having the right to make decisions and the right to choose how to live their life. We call these freedom and liberty. And anytime the federal government steps in without the authority of the citizens, we the people, to impose any type of control on that freedom and liberty, then they are operating outside the bounds of a just government.
Explain your feeling about this statement: our Constitution was made only for moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. I think he kind of answered that already.
Well, yes, but I mean, it's more than that. If we take a look as we move towards humanistic type of behavior in this country and across the world, what we're seeing is a reduction of the interaction from people to people and respect for each other. Many people think that a humanistic approach actually allows us to have more freedom because we're removing the inhibitions that some religions have placed upon society. And the problem with that is that we are losing we're losing the focus of the interaction of person to person and the focus that we owe an obligation to our individual fellow citizens. And I find that religion is the greatest reinforcer of that personally. And I've had arguments over my lifetime with people saying, well, you can be moral without being religious. And the case is true. But usually what we find is that people who would advocate morality without religion advocate a different behavior than what you find with most religions.
As a public official, you will be required to take an oath to uphold and preserve the Constitution of the United States. When is the last time you undertook a serious study of the Constitution, and can you identify one or two areas where you feel the Constitution is being violated today?
I guess the first point is that I'll make the point that I took an oath first time to the Constitution of the United States when I joined the military, January 3rd, 1975. That oath of office, there is no process to remove a sworn oath, if you'll notice, in the Constitution or any other document. So it's just as binding on people today as the day they first took it. Some of the places that I see that we are, Article 1, Section 8 would be the greatest place to go look at where we're violating, the Constitution. Our government is operating outside the boundaries of the Constitution because we are doing things that are not within the enumerated powers from our federal government. Examples of things that we've created: the Department of Education, the Department of Energy. I would argue that you've got to pull the weapons side out of the Department of Energy and put it back into defense because that is a legitimate function. We look at the intrusion of the federal government on state sovereignty as defined in the 10th Amendment. Whenever we have a government that is telling the states, you will do this. When they reach down and take a tax dollar from the American people and they pull it to Washington, D.C. and they spend 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 cents of that dollar, then come back to the states and hand what's left over and tell them, you will do the following education, you'll do the following types of housing, you'll do the following types of things that are not within the Constitution because it's a government unfunded mandate, which is, once again, not authorized and allowed under the Constitution from a strict interpretation, they're violating the intent of the Constitution. So there's some examples of what that would be.
Would you speak to the issue of the Constitution being violated by the creation of the Federal Reserve System and the fact that our monetary system is no longer being implemented as is called for in Section 8, where it says only Congress shall have the power to coin money into assets the value thereof?
Well, there are many in Congress who would try to argue that they've created and allowed the Federal Reserve to operate to execute that work. I disagree because if you have a responsibility, and you've got somebody who refuses to answer questions, and I'm going to use a military example. As a commissioned officer, I had the right to tell people junior to me, give them orders of what to do, okay? They were expected to go out and execute that work, but I always had the obligation to be responsible for everything occurring there. Our Congress is being told, in fact, we had the Federal Reserve Chairman absolutely refused to answer questions from the Senate. So you've got an uncontrolled entity out there setting national monetary policy, which we know the Constitution says is a congressional responsibility, obligation, and tasking. And they're refusing to answer the question. So we have an out-of-control entity, and we must address that. We must move it back to where Congress is exercising their responsibility as it comes to the control of monetary policy and the coining and printing of money.
In an effort to get the Constitution enforced and to get Congress back under the control of the Constitution, would you be in favor of returning our monetary standard to a gold standard?
Well, I am in favor to returning to a hard currency. That might be that we return to a blend of gold, silver, perhaps include titanium and palladium in those mixes. Those are rare metals that have inherent intrinsic worth just like the others. The problem with returning to a pure gold standard is there's not enough gold in the world, and I would say that if we tried to impose a gold standard today that is defendable, by defendable I mean if you have a monetary policy that says our dollar is backed by the gold, okay? Currently gold is selling for about $1,119 an ounce as I saw this morning. Okay, to be able to have sufficient gold in the national reserves for the number of dollars that's been printed, we'd have to be looking at $100,000 to $200,000 per ounce to back up the true value of the gold. And if we did not do that, what would happen is foreign countries would raid our reserves. So we'd have to create a blend. So yes, we have to do a study. We have to make a determination. How do we migrate back to it, and how do we do so without crippling the economy internal and the economy external of the United States?